So let's say you are a high school student looking for a solo to use for solo and ensemble, or maybe even a college audition, or you're a high school band director and you're not a euphonium player or even a brass player, and you're trying to figure out how to find a good solo for you or your student. That's what we're going to go through here, and I'm going to give my favorite solos in grades 3 through 7 on the Florida list. Stay tuned. What's going on, everybody? Aaron here, helping musicians get better, faster. And again, I'm going to help you find ways to pick a solo or know that if one is worth your time, but also some of my favorites on the Florida list. And I'm doing Florida because that's the state I live and work in. That's the list that I am the most familiar with, but a lot of these tips could probably go for your list and your state as well as a lot of these solos appear on multiple lists as well. So the first thing that always tends to be a problem is how to find your list. And literally all you need to do, take whatever state you're in, let's say Virginia Solo and Ensemble list, let's say. You should be able to find band, orchestra. You can select your instrument. Now in Florida, we get a really nice drop down like this, and you can pick, solo and ensemble. You click onto it, browse the current list, and then all this stuff pops out. So I've got ours here ready to go. One of the big problems that a lot of people run into is if a solo is any good, and if it's worth your time. So here's some things to help you tell if it's a red flag or not when it comes to solos. Because sometimes you'll see something, and especially if it's like a transcription, and you're like, oh, I know that name. That's probably something that's pretty good, and maybe not so much. So here's how I can tell. So one of the first things is maybe you see Bolero, and you're like, I know that tune. And you see boleros and you're like, I kind of heard of that composer before. Then you go and search for a YouTube video of it. And this one has a lot of views for, a middle school solo. Almost 8K views is a really good amount. But one of the problems is it's on saxophone. I'm pretty sure this isn't the correct thing. Ratcliffe College Spring Concert. That's probably not what we're looking for. And I have to say that a lot of these are probably transcriptions of the orchestra part. So this thing might be, solo and ensemble, might be correct. The problem is that it's from 13 years ago. It's on a wrong instrument, which is just a giant red flag of this solo isn't worth enough people's time to play and to record. But if you go to something I just picked something that was super overplayed, the Barat Introduction and Dance. If you look that up on YouTube, you're gonna get a ton of people performing it, including yours truly. I need a thumbnail for that. I don't have a thumbnail for that. But you find a lot of people playing it both on tuba and euphonium because it is a solo for both. So that tells me that it's a little bit more worthwhile. The other thing is if we go to this Barat and we click on it, you can see how many times it's been performed in the last 5 years. Triple digits is solid. That means a lot of people have been playing this thing, right? We've got 112 in the past 5 years. But if you go back to that Bolero and you look that up, 3 times in 5 years. So it's not even getting played once every 5 years. That piece probably isn't any good. And one of the reasons you might want to poke around on the list and look around for things like that is a lot of times band directors will have a library of solos for their student, and they don't realize that either the solo they're picking is just not really good. Maybe they inherited it. And, if I was a band director and I got a library of solo and ensemble pieces for my whole band, for all the different instruments and stuff, I'd be ecstatic. The problem is a lot of times those solos are just kind of in there, or they're so old and they didn't prove the test of time. And so now a lot of times they're not even published anymore. And that band director has one of the copies. So you just want to make sure that what you're playing is something that is worth your time. So even if you're like, I might, maybe, possibly be taking a college audition, these solos need to be worthy of possibly being audition pieces for you. Everything I do can be reused as material for later auditions. So even from the grade 3 level, you can probably find stuff that could at least work for a college audition. Maybe it's not the best options, but at least it can work. So those are the 2 big ways that I filter out solos when I'm looking at them with students. I will say this, the Florida list is kind of rough when it comes to solos. There's not a whole lot that I'm like, I need my students to play this, especially in the lower levels. As we go up, it tends to get better. But let's go ahead and dive into the grade 3s that I happen to really like. I'm not going to necessarily go over in-depth circumstances of why I like it, but these are ones that I've used a lot for my students, and they tend to work well. Okay, so the first one we'll put on the list is Andante and March. For a second one, which I don't know why the formatting on here looks so bad, but let's do the Premier Solo de Concours by Magnette. That one I've heard played before. I haven't had a student do it, but I also haven't had a lot of grade 3 students. And then the other one that I've had a lot of people play is the Serenade from Don Giovanni. Not a lot of people play it, but I think it's a lot of fun, and it works really well for euphonium just because it's transcription of a vocal piece. Now, if you saw me ranking my solos, you know that I like Curnow a lot. However, though I am gonna put Rhapsody on this list, I'm gonna put it as my number 3, and mostly because I don't think it's a really good grade 4 for people. I think it is a high level piece that is really good. I think it is a terrible grade 4. All right, so the next one I'm going to put on here, or the first one I'm going to put on here, is the Uber Montage. And then the next one, the Hutchinson Sonatina, is going to be really good, mostly because sonatinas have a little bit of the fast, slow, fast, which is what you're going to get into here. In the grade 3s, you're going to have a lot of just the same. If it's a fast solo, it's going to be fast. The grade 4s, we start to get some more of that, sonata form or whatever. 5s, here we are. So 5 is, in my opinion, the golden standard for what solos, especially if you're looking for repeat solos for college auditions. Absolutely. So intro and dance is for sure on here. Significantly important. So let's do the suite for baritone, the Haddad. What's the last one I like? I really like this Mozart, or this Laudamus Te transcription. And this is probably the last transcription I'll have. But I like Frack and Pool. All right, grade 6s. But we're actually going to start with the Fantasia, the Gordon Jacobs. Stutter Step, I think, is a great piece. We're going to add it to the list. I do think it is a little hard for grade 6, but I guess I wouldn't put it in a 7, so yeah. And then we're going to go with the Believe Me If All Those Enduring Young Charms. Notice that's my first theme and variation, by the way. Try my best not to add a lot of theme and variations. So with the grade 7s, all of these are pretty good. They're varying levels. I'm not a big fan of the sonata, by the Uber Sonata. So we're going to put the Concerto for Youth, the Horvitz. I mean, that's a given. We'll put the Sparks, whichever one you like. They're very, very similar. They have a lot of the similar things. I would put Harlequin or Pantomime over Party Piece. I'm wondering, Pantomime's probably played 100 times. Yeah, 22 times in the past 5 years. And then finally, I think the Baccalari, the Fantasia, the Concerto. I like Symphonic Variants. Symphonic Variants is actually my favorite solo on this list, but the Symphonic Variants is hard. And not to say that the Fantasia de Concerto is not. Those are some of the solos that I really, really like, but also just the ways that I go about picking them. And you saw me struggle a little bit to find grade 3s and grade 4s. That's how hard it is to find stuff that's worth our time and worthwhile. And it's also really hard for students to prepare because there's not a lot of quality literature down there that's being played by professionals who are recording it or anything like that. Especially in the low brass land, when you have French horn or flute or clarinet, or, some of these more established instruments, people are going to be recording a lot of those solos no matter if they're easy or hard because they've been playing them for years and years and years. Whereas for our instruments, there's no real reason for somebody like me, a professional on euphonium, to go and play Where You Walk by Handel, other than maybe if I was doing an opera showcase. I really don't know any reason why I would necessarily do that though. So let me know what you think. What are some ways, that you kind of filter through these for you or your students? I'd be curious. But that's our list. The primary thing that I've learned from this is I'm really glad that I don't teach a lot of little students anymore, because I would struggle to find a really good grade 3 for them in my state.